Good afternoon and welcome to Complex PTSD TV Live. My name's Linda. I'm your certified trauma recovery coach. And thank you for everybody for having the patience to wait a couple of weeks as I've been very busy. And I'll go through and explain what's happening. But first of all, today we're going to talk about 10 essentials to know about covert narcissists. Okay, now they're not talked about a lot, and there's something that we do need to talk about more because it's happening all the time. Now in Australia, we have statistics of one adult female being killed every week because of, and links to being covert narcissism, and we're not knowing about it. And there's countries around the world that are doing something about making laws around it. So I know Wales, Scotland, in that area, they've already made rules for covert narcissism. In Australia, they're still doing studies about it and how to implement it as law, because we're looking at emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, mental abuse, things that aren't necessarily open and obvious to the naked eye. So when it comes to covert narcissists, we need to be aware of what's happening and what to look for. And it's not about saying, this blanket statement that, oh, that person's a narcissist, as we have done over the past. It's about saying, okay, I can see those tendencies are happening, but can I have an adult conversation with this person around their behaviour, and can we reach a mutual decision, okay? Something that brings us together and we both agree on. Now, if the person has narcissistic tendencies, and especially with covert narcissists, they won't agree. They might agree in public, but they won't agree behind closed doors. So the 10 things that I want you to be aware of. Now, I'm going to put links to my Facebook and Instagram because I have already put this up for you so that you can go back and really look at what's happening and see if it applies to you in your life and get some help around it. So unlike other forms of narcissistic personality disorder, covert narcissists can have traits of shyness, humility, sensitivity to what others think of them, okay? They can have an extreme sensitivity to criticism. So think about, if you've got to think about before you speak to them about something that's not going right in your relationship, and then you've got to go down the rabbit hole of, will this work? Can I say this? Can I say that or not? And how do I need to approach it? And you're spending half a day at the end of the day to try and work out how to have an adult conversation. Then you're going to be looking at somebody with an extreme sensitivity to criticism, and you've learnt that you have to tiptoe around being able to speak as an adult with an observation. Okay, so they can use passive-aggressive behaviour to convey frustration or make themselves look superior. So they'll tell you everything is fine, and then in the next breath do something to hurt you, which reflects back to what you thought everything wasn't fine about. Okay, they have a tendency to put themselves down instead of boasting about themselves. So there's 3 other types of narcissists, and with those 3, generally you can pick them up because they do have the tendency to boast about themselves a lot, okay, and often. And for them, it's part of their conversation, okay? But with covert narcissists, you're going to be finding that they don't do it obviously either, okay? They will put themselves down, and in putting themselves down, they want you to buy into the process and build them up. So as adults, we need to be able to have the ability to build ourselves up too, okay? Not keep relying on other people, because the other side of it is with the codependence if you don't have the ability to build yourself up, then you're going to go into relationships with people who are seeking it as well. And it just, well, we all know, we've been there, and it ends up an absolute mess, okay? Well, I forgot to say at the beginning too, covert narcissism is not openly acknowledged or displayed. So overt narcissism, we can see it with our eyes once we know what it is. We can actually see the behaviours happening. But with covert narcissism, we don't see it with our eyes. It's part of, I've got to understand what's happening, and I've got to be able to see where my emotions are being manipulated to make the other person happy, or, you know, to keep the peace. Where am I walking on eggshells? And as we've already talked about, how am I going down the thought rabbit hole of working out how I can address this other adult that I've got an issue that we need to resolve together, okay? They are more strongly linked to being an introvert and may also avoid social situations or relationships that lack clear benefits. So you may find that this person doesn't have a lot of friends or next to no friends. You may find that those people that are in their life, when they speak about them, they look up to them, and you think, well, that's healthy. But no, they look up to them because they want something out of that relationship long term. And this does my head in when people are like that. Like, what happened to integrity and being genuine and being open and honest about what we need? So yeah, be very, very careful. And this comes back to our whole chat about having different layers of friendship. So we take time to get to know people and what they're genuinely like at a heart level. Covert narcissists generally spend more time thinking about their abilities and achievements, and they have an inner narrative that doesn't equate to reality. So they think really highly of themselves, and there's no evidence to support it. So there's no evidence to support their big grandiose dreams. And it just reminds me of one lady I knew from overseas, and she told me how he promised her the world and how he was this, this and this. But when she dug into his background a bit more over time, it kept appearing how he was all talk, no action. There was no substance to him as a person. They may hold grudges for a long time, say nothing in the moment, wait for an ideal opportunity to get revenge in some way. Now think about that. Now, it took me a long time to understand people who hold grudges. It really did. But then what happened over time was they'd bring back up things that had happened in the past that I couldn't even remember because I thought they were resolved. So that's when you start going, oh my goodness, that person's obviously holding a grudge. I've been holding on to things that I had no idea hadn't been resolved, okay? And it gets used against you. You know, why haven't you remembered? Why didn't you remember? So on and so forth. They may not outwardly discuss feelings of envy, but they might express bitterness or resentment when they don't get what they believe they deserve. And I wish I'd known this a long time ago. Because I have a can-do attitude, no matter what, okay, there's a problem, let's find a solution, let's work towards it. I didn't understand at the time that there were people who expected that life should be handed to them on a platter, who believed that out of their family they deserved X, Y, and Z. And the list just goes on, especially around family. So look for that in family, especially if they're bitter towards their family members. Yeah, it's not a good thing. It's very unhealthy to be around people who are bitter towards their family. It can either mean that there's covert narcissistic traits going on, Or it can mean they have unresolved things inside of them and they really need to go and get healthy about that before they're in a relationship, not carry that baggage with them, okay? Or at least know it is baggage. That'd be a good start. They may seem to have empathy for others and might seem willing to help others or take on extra work, but then and this is done to win the approval of others. So what can happen is you think, oh, they're a really good person, they're going out and helping other people, but then behind closed doors, and covert narcissism happens behind closed doors, you soon find out that there are other reasons for them going and helping other people. It's always to advance themselves in other people's eyes or advance themselves in the community they're in. It's never done out of a full heart. So I was out yesterday helping with a ministry, and someone came up to the table and said to my friend and I, oh wow, you must think that you don't get noticed, and we're looking at each other going, oh, that's not why we're here to be noticed, we're here to help. And that kind of attitude comes from people who have covert narcissism happening, is that they think that you should be noticed for what you're doing. But, there are those of us who do things out of the generosity of our heart because we simply just love to help other people. So be careful, think things through, and get your friends to talk to you about it as well. Is this happening? Because we need to know in our own gut instinct as well what's happening internally for us, and then be able to separate what's happening for the other person. So when we've grown up with toxic trauma from childhood, then we have to build ourselves up. We have to know who I am in order that we can separate other people's emotions from ours and leave them with their own stuff, okay? If they don't win approval of others, including family members, they feel bitter and resentful and make remarks about how people take advantage of them and don't appreciate them. And that is like a big red flag, okay? Again, it goes to the heart stuff, it goes to the emotional level stuff, and you really want to take on board what's happening, not take on board literally, you want to take into your awareness what's happening for somebody else at an emotional level and see if they're dealing with it themselves. The last thing we need to be doing when we've come through adverse childhood experiences is taking on somebody else's distress by going into a relationship with them, because it does impact our health, most definitely. Okay, and I'll just let you know there's a couple of other things that I'm doing at the moment. I'm just getting certified for internal family systems for complex trauma specific, okay? And I'm also getting certified in not parent expected. Now, you may or may not have heard of that, and not parent expected comes into people getting DNA tests and finding out their parents aren't their parents, their family's not their family. And it also brings into focus intergenerational trauma, which is what I'm about. And I'm doing the course with a number of other people who are actually not parent expected people, so that's been their experience. But their feelings that they have were actually the same that I felt in my family, where I knew I was from my family. So it's that deep feeling of, I don't belong in this family, like something's not right, am I adopted? And, it's always something that you can't put your finger on. So a lot of that we can look into intergenerational trauma with too. Okay, thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, to share for all of those around the world that need practical help with their mental health, and know that they're not alone, that we are talking about it, we are doing practical things to heal and recover from what's been passed down to us and to keep us safe as we go forward into sharing new healthy relationships. Thanks, Shah. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.